Well, joining us now is Ben Harris-Quinney, who's chairman of the Group, which is a Conservative think tank. Now, Ben, where do you think Boris Johnson stands in his own party right now? Is he in trouble or is he going to survive this?
I think he's on a precipice. My sense is that he will survive, but he's got to change tack very quickly on a number of issues. I think he'll survive because, and a lot of people have asked me this, who would you like to succeed Boris Johnson? And I think the real problem there is the Conservative Party since 2005 has been hollowed out and filled with Liberals, and there are very few Conservatives left. And the complaint that a lot of people have is that we voted for a Conservative Party and we didn't get one. We want to see a Conservative Party that does Conservative things. And I don't honestly see many people that could take the mantle from Boris Johnson and lead it in a Conservative direction. He is clearly leading the party in a very liberal direction, or some would even say socialist direction, based on some of the restrictions and economic measures he has brought forward. But I think he will survive because there isn't that obvious challenger, particularly from the right. But as Michael Fabricant said, I think there needs to be, or he alluded to the fact that there is a question about how many adults there are in number 10. We've called for an inquiry into the role of the Prime Minister's wife, much publicised her spat with Dominic Cummings, and that really shouldn't be happening it shouldn't be happening in any country, but it shouldn't be happening in a country like Britain, where you have someone that is unconstitutionally involved in running it and unaccountable. So I think Boris needs to take the message, clear out number 10, perhaps get some old wise hands in that can steer the government in a much more stable direction.
It does seem to me that they've been having a jolly good time, haven't they, in number 10, according to the pictures, of course, posted in The Guardian today. But do you think that means he's not being a good leader? If he's got a coterie around him who people like you cannot take seriously and are worried about, that suggests to me that, he's not really made to be a boss.
No, I mean, those questions have been asked about Boris Johnson throughout his entire career. Is he serious enough? And no, I don't think he is. But if you have someone alongside him, or several people alongside him that play that serious role, I think that it can rumble on a little longer. But that's all we're really talking about. I think we've got to remember the context as well. The Conservative Party, Boris Johnson hasn't, but the Conservative Party have been in power for 11 years, and we've had this constant recycling. David Cameron was supposed to be someone that was going to take on Blair. He very quickly dubbed himself as the heir to Blair. I remember campaigning in 2010 and doing lots of things to get the Blair-Brown government out, and we ended up with just another Tony Blair. Then, of course, he went, and the Brexit movement flourished, which I know that you were a big part of as well. And we were supposed to get a Brexit government, and what we got was a Remainer in Theresa May. Of course, that turned out to be a disaster, and then Boris was supposed to come along and save the day, and we have the same problem just a few years later. So I think there's that much deeper problem in the Conservative Party, and I think the Conservative Party needs to urgently reconnect with its grassroots base and with the ideology of conservatism. But I also think that we have now a constellation of parties on the right: Reform, Reclaim, Heritage. The SDP is now operating on the social conservative side of the spectrum, and I think those parties need to come together and form a challenge to the government in the same way that UKIP and the Brexit Party did, to focus the minds of the government and to pull it back to conservatism. And what we've seen in recent by-election results is these sorts of parties getting 6-7% in the polls if you put them all together. And I think if they can all come together under a single leader, then we can start to get some proper opposition, because the Labour Party clearly incapable of doing so, and then we can start to hold the government to account and perhaps improve the government, because that was always the point of opposition, and why our structure is the way it is that opposition is there to scrutinise government, to improve government for the country. So I would encourage all of those disparate parties on the right to realise that individually they can do nothing, but collectively they can do a lot, and come together and form that union.
It's interesting, when you mention conservatism there, for most people, when they think of conservatism, they think of Margaret Thatcher. And she, of course, famously said that she wasn't a conciliatory leader, she was a conviction leader. Boris doesn't seem to be the same, though. There have been so many screeching U-turns. Does he have conviction? Does he have a real belief that he wants to see through to create a legacy? Or is he guided a little bit too much by polls and reputation?
Well, I think the problem is, we for a very long time, and the Brexit vote was a vote against the metropolitan liberal cabal that has governed this country for almost the entirety of my life since Margaret Thatcher left office, pretty much. Now, the problem is with Boris Johnson, he is an avowed liberal. He's talked about it many times. He's not a conservative. He has very clearly explained that he's not a conservative. When it suited him, he pretended to be conservative, and that's how he found his way to leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister. So he does have some values, but he's had to pretend to be something he isn't, and then he's had many other things laid upon him by SAGE and government advisors, and indeed, as I said before, it would appear his girlfriend and now wife. And so I think he's even lost a commitment to liberal politics. I'm a conservative. I think we need to get the liberal metropolitan lot out, but at least the liberal metropolitan lot might balk at things like vaccine passports, but we don't even have that. And I think it's the old adage that the problem is with people that believe in nothing is that they will believe in anything. And Boris seems to be swinging from issue to issue in a way that I would say, on almost every major broad brush area of policy, this Conservative government, and indeed recent Conservative governments, have operated to the left of Tony Blair's government. They've almost tripled the national debt. Tax is higher than it has been since the Second World War. On social policy, woke flourished under the Conservative Party. They've embedded Stonewall and groups like that and given them huge amounts of government money and embedded them in government departments. And so I don't see where the conservatism is, and I don't even see where it's to the right of, as I say, that previous Blair government. So we need a total realignment, I think, in British politics. Not because it's what I want, but it is what I want, but it's very clearly what the public want. That's what they wanted in voting Brexit. They wanted a change, and we haven't had that change. We've had an establishment that has morphed and tried to pretend to be Brexiteers. You were mentioning Liz Truss earlier. Liz Truss is someone who was a Liberal Democrat Remainer, and Cameron forced her through candidate selection. This isn't going to be the answer to achieving the Conservative results that the country clearly wants. So I think we need a realignment of Conservative parties. We need people that want that to come together and maybe put a few egos aside. And we also need the Conservative Party to recognise why people voted for them. And it certainly wasn't for this.
Ben Harris-Quinney, thank you so much. That's chairman of the Bow Group there. Of course, we haven't got any right of reply from Carrie Johnson, so let's just park that in our minds right now. We don't know what influence she exercises over the Prime Minister, as I want to always defend people who are not here to give us their side of the story. Just wanted to make that point.